Hello, beautiful sisters. This is Ola Davis with another episode of When Marriage Hurts podcast. This is episode number 89, and on this particular one, I want to talk about how covert abusers tend to draw us into a relationship, like how they get us to a place where we say, oh, this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with, and then we marry them and we find ourselves in this mess. So I'm going to be sharing from my own story a little bit as usual. So don't go nowhere. I will be right back after this. Hey sis, welcome to the When Marriage Hurts podcast. I'm your host, Ola Davis. My mission is to help Christian women in painful marriages become aware of the marriage lies our society and religion has programmed our heads with. Are you tired of marriage advice that always blames you for whatever goes wrong in your marriage? Have you attended all the marriage seminars seeking help only to be blamed and shamed for your marriage problems? Has your marriage become the source of your greatest pain? Have you lost hope of being happily married? Are you just hanging in for the sake of your kids? I've been there before. I know what it is like to feel alone in marriage, yet feel trapped by the wedding vows that I made. Together, we will discover scriptural truths that set us free from the pain so that healing can begin. Oh yeah, let's shake some tables. Welcome back. Yes, so before I begin, I first want you ladies to know that I opened up a few more spots for coaching in this month of September. So if you have been thinking of booking a coaching session with me and you haven't really made up your mind, or maybe you've looked at my calendar and you only saw weekends and that wasn't going to work for you, I just wanted you to know that I opened up a few more spots for weekdays, and that link, the booking link, is going to be in the show notes. So you want to take a look at that and find if there is a time that works better for you that you would want to book for coaching. Okay, so let's get into today's topic. How do covert abusers, how do they draw us in to a relationship with them in the first place? You know, sometimes I meet women, or I hear from women that I've left one abusive marriage and then they meet this great guy and then they marry him, and in a number of years they quickly realize that this second person they're with, or this second husband, is a covert abuser as well. And it can get really confusing because when you've been in one abusive relationship, you think you know all the signs. So when you find out you've entered into another abusive relationship, you wonder, what did I miss? What did I not see? Was I blinded by love? Well, it's because abusers are typically very intelligent and they know how to manipulate you psychologically and emotionally. Okay, so the first thing that they tend to do is they tend to get you to trust them. And the way that they tend to do this is to be very vulnerable. Essentially, they tend to trauma dump on you. They tend to dump some kind of trauma on you. You know, a lot of us have been taught, or at least made to believe, that men are logical, they're not emotional, they have trouble being vulnerable. Those are all lies, by the way. There's no truth to that. But the covert abuser tends to dump some kind of trauma on you very, very early on in the relationship. So when you start seeing them, they start telling you, their sob stories, that it could take whatever form. It could come in the form of, I come from a broken home and my parents really weren't there for me, or I was severely abused by my father, or it could be, it could be something related to their childhood trauma. It could be something to do with their previous relationship, right? If they were seeing someone before or previously married to someone, they will tell you sub stories about, oh, my ex-girlfriend or my ex-wife, she was so abusive towards me. She took my children from me. She took my money from me. Like, they would make up these lies, but they would communicate it to you in a way that's very, very convincing. And you start to feel sorry for them. They start to draw you in, because you're like, oh my goodness, it's not like other guys. It's so open and it's so vulnerable, right? And just subconsciously, you start to feel almost like their mom. You start to feel like you want to protect them. Subconsciously, you start to feel like, and you might even verbalize this to them, like, oh, I'm not that way. They put you in this position that you start to feel like, oh, I need to treat this person good because they've been through so much, right? You want to offer them your art, your love, and mind you, this is happening very, very early on in the relationship, right? I'm not saying every relationship where the person shares their trauma with you means the person is an abuser, but I'm saying when that conversation appears just a few weeks into dating this person, you can expect some toxicity in that relationship. That's not healthy. When you start dating someone, it's not the appropriate time for them to be dumping all their trauma on you. And if they know that they have trauma, what are they doing to fix that? That's the question you should be asking yourself. What are they doing to fix that? Or are they just taking pleasure in dumping trauma on you? Or are they actually working on fixing whatever terrible effects this trauma has had on their life? So as I'm describing all of this, I want you to think about when you met your husband, and if any of this resonates with you. I'm really curious to know. I've met people who have similar experiences, and my own experience is that very early on into dating my ex-husband, he started telling me about his parents' marriage, how it really affected him as a child, how their father abandoned them and went after another woman, and how that has just made him to want to have the best marriage ever, and he wants his marriage to work. My dear, we're not even engaged yet. We're just dating. And how he's just so happy that he's found a godly woman like me, and blah blah blah. Another kind of thing they might dump on you, another kind of trauma they might dump on you might have to do with sexuality, right? So in my own case, he started telling me about how he got hooked on pornography at an early age because he had these uncles that came to babysit them at the house, and they were watching adult movies, and he got to see it too, and blah, blah, blah. It is always, see, for covert abusers, right? If I'm telling you what I'm about to tell you, if you can get that, you will be a step ahead of them. for covert abusers, it always comes down to they are the victim. Whatever story they tell you, whatever story they share with you, they are always the victim in the story. Even right now, as they are maltreating you and abusing you emotionally, in their minds, they feel like they are the victim. If you ever speak up about this abuse, you're attacking them in their own mind. Oh, that is attack. They would never see it as them being the perpetrator. So they might share some sub story about, I got hooked on pornography, and of course it would be through no fault of theirs, right? No accountability whatsoever. And they can tell you a sub story about how they are struggling with masturbation and how the Lord is helping them through it. And like I said again, they typically share this very early on in the relationship because they want to pull you in. They've already studied you. They know that you're someone who cares deeply. They know that you're someone who wants to help other people with whatever difficulty they have. Essentially, they know that in some ways, we like to be saviors. We like to, and I'm not trying to blame victims here, because I'm telling you, I'm talking right back at myself. They know that you have so much empathy, and that is what they weaponize against their victims. So they draw us in with the sub stories so that subconsciously we're just like, oh my love, I'm gonna help you through this, I'm gonna love you through it. They would say things like, oh, my mom abandoned my dad, and I've always had the fear that if I love a woman so much, she's gonna abandon me too. Automatically that makes you want to feel like, oh no, I'm not that way. I'm not the kind of person that abandons the person she loves. I love you. They put you in a position where you are reaffirming your love towards them, albeit prematurely, right? This is all psychological manipulation. They just are drawing you in. And I'm not saying some of their stories aren't true. They might be struggling with masturbation. They might come from a home where one parent abandoned the other. It really does not matter. What really matters is that is not, when you start dating someone, that is not your baggage to begin to deal with. It's not your baggage to begin to deal with. And it's never your job to save someone from their trauma. They are adults. You can support them through it as they get whatever professional help that they need, but they shouldn't dump that all on you like it's your responsibility. Because when they tell you that, oh, my fear is that I'm going to be abandoned by someone I love, just like my ex-wife abandoned me, or just like my mom abandoned my dad, or my dad, whatever the shade of their story is, that puts you in a position where if the relationship doesn't work out, walking away from it becomes difficult for you. Because you start remembering everything they told you at the beginning of the relationship, and you start thinking, oh, I don't want him to think I'm abandoning him. And it makes you resolve to work on a relationship that you shouldn't even be wasting your time working on, and you should really be parting ways. So they set you up at the beginning of the relationship. They set you up in a way that it's almost as if they put this invisible prison gates around you. You feel like no matter how bad this relationship goes, it's your job to fix it. You start to excuse, they set you up in a way where when they start to maltreat you in the future, you will start to give them excuses for maltreating you. So when they start to like maybe verbally abuse you later, you start to think, oh, that's just because he came from a home where his dad verbally abused his mom, and that's like you start to make all those excuses for them because they already programmed that into your mind at the beginning of the relationship. And so they fake this vulnerability, right? They fake being overly emotional, and that draws us in. They gain our trust, right? They gain our trust. They also would sometimes listen to what we have to say. And if you're the kind of person that you've been in relationships where you feel like you weren't heard and you weren't listened to and your voice didn't really matter, that is something that really draws you in. When a man just listens to you and seems to hang on your every word. But when they're listening to you and faking this caring attitude, they are not just listening to you for the sake of listening to you. They are listening to you to really gain an insight into how they can better manipulate you, sadly. So they are listening to you as they are listening to you, their brain is trying to pick out your weak points. Like their brain is trying to pick out areas of your life where you aren't so strong. They're trying to pick out the weak links in your life that they can capitalize on to better have control over you. But you don't know that that's going on in their brain and in their mind, right? All you see is a man that is listening to you with such attention, right? And such care in his eyes. And ladies, this is how they draw us in. This is how we start to feel like we are in love, when in reality we are being manipulated. We are being love bombed. So this is where I'm gonna wrap it up on this episode. I think this might be a mini series, so you can expect a part 2 where I'll be sharing more of this covert tactics of the covert abusers. I hope this helps someone out. Let me know. I've heard people with this kind of stories that are similar to mine, but I'm curious to know if what I've shared so far on this episode also resonates with you. If you can think of when you started dating your husband, if they shared some stories with you where they were the victim, and just please let me know. Shoot me an email at oladavis360@gmail.com. If you've never left us a review on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review so that other women looking for a podcast like this one to help them out can easily find us. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Like I said, if you would like to just get some clarity, need some coaching, have something you're going through right now and need someone to talk to, you can book a session with me. The link is going to be in the show notes. I hope you have a wonderful week. God bless you. Bye. Has this podcast blessed you? If yes, please head over to Apple Podcasts, When Marriage Hurts, and leave a written review for the show. It would be such a blessing to me to know that this show has impacted you in some ways. Also, share this podcast with a friend. Let's spread the word. Lastly, if you would like to be a part of a community of like-minded women of faith who are on a journey to living the best life God has for them despite their marriage challenges, join our Facebook group, When Marriage Hurts. Until next time, remember these words of Jesus. Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest.